Well, good evening here with Miles and Kim Ahrens, and we're really grateful for you guys being able to share tonight more about developing leaders to mentor in a marriage ministry. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of dive in here and more about what God's doing at Trinity.
Sure. Miles and Kim Ahrens, we've been at Trinity Evangelical Free Church in Woodbridge, Connecticut for 18 years as the senior pastor, and we've been married for
43 years. We have 3 grown kids, 1 little grandson, and our kids live in California, Florida, and Connecticut.
Wow.
As spread out as it possibly could be.
And we were on staff with Campus Crusade for Christ/Crew for 24 years.
Well, thanks. Well, I was talking with Miles just a couple of weeks ago, and he was sharing with me about the marriage ministry that's being developed at Trinity. I'd love for you guys to share a little bit, first of all, about that marriage ministry, kind of describing how it works and its purposes.
Well, it's a ministry called Re-Engage. It comes from a church in Texas that developed it, and they license churches to reproduce the same material. And they have a whole set of training for the launching it, training for the leaders, and a workbook for every participant that gets involved. One of the things that, as I saw that really attracted me to, I got a copy of the book and began to read through it. I loved the content. It was exactly what I would do if I was going to write content for a class, for a marriage class. But the whole concept behind it is, it really parallels the way I do pre-marriage counseling. What it does is the participant couples, they get a book, they do the homework during the week as individuals. They each get a book, they have to read a couple pages in the chapter and then answer several questions on their own. And then they have to meet together and share their answers to the questions and then come to the class. So they're already kind of primed and they're doing work every week on their own. And
which is how this program is set up too.
Right. That's how I would do pre-marriage counseling, and it fits the same way. So every week the couples are doing work personally, and then together they're sharing, having a little conflict, little issues come up, and then they come to the class ready to listen and ready to talk and share about what's going on.
But it's been good too, because as we've been going through the lessons ahead of time, and all of our mentor couples are going through the lessons, we have very sometimes heated discussions.
We're still learning. We're still growing.
It brings up little irritations and things sometimes that you have to talk through. And so it's a place where the mentor couples can really be real in sharing, so that the couples that are there feel like it's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah, so that's one of the principles in it, is to create an atmosphere of transparency. So it starts with us. And so the first week, when we were kind of inviting couples to come consider the class, and maybe if they were interested, maybe, but to kind of check it out, the first week, Kim and I shared our story, some of the highlights and all, but also some of the lowlights and some of the struggles that we've had. And that helped sort of create the atmosphere that, hey, we all have struggles, we have deal with issues, we need to learn from that, and we can learn from each other. So the whole idea of sort of a personal testimony of, we've had our share of struggles, we've made mistakes, but Christ, as we've learned how to put Christ first and allow him to lead in our lives and lead in our marriage, we've seen him work through those things. So that becomes the framework, for the class, and and creating an atmosphere of transparency and openness. And that's what we expect the mentor couples to do too. And so we started with the mentor couples. We invited 3 couples to kind of be leaders and to be mentors of the couples that signed up. 2 of those couples we had already worked with for the past 2 years in our life discipleship group. And we just had a conviction that we needed to work with couples. So the whole application coming out of Life Flow training was, I really wanted to do leadership development. I wanted to disciple some people, thought of a lot of different people that I could, but really felt like the best way to do that was to do couples, not individuals. And so we started way back with, a few years ago, with a group, 4 couples. One of them moved to California, so we ended up with 3. But spent a year, the past 2 years with them. We would meet once a month as a group, and once a month 2-on-2 with them. So we got the personal side, the accountability 2-on-2 and talk what's really going on, and the context of a group where they had camaraderie and other people in the process and could share and talk and learn together. So kind of combining the best of both concepts. Plus, all 3 of the couples were involved in ministry of different kinds. They were busy people anyway. And so we were only asking 1 night a month to meet with us, and then one night where at their convenience. We would meet them, we would take them out to dinner, we'd do whatever schedule worked for them. So very flexible.
And those couples didn't really know each other at first. I mean, they knew each other
in church, but
yeah, church people, friends, acquaintances. But now they're very involved in each other's lives.
Wow. Can you kind of describe some of the fruit that you've seen these couples that you've worked with? It's been a couple of years now. How have you seen, I guess, both them changing personally, but even maybe their desire to now work with others?
Yeah, so we went into it with, in our group, we used the book Multiply by Francis Chan, and kind of said from the beginning, I said, our purpose of this group is to fulfill the vision that we had laid out as a church, to make disciples who make disciples. And so we started with that as an expectation, and but that we wanted to prepare them, we wanted to equip them, we wanted to give them tools to use.
So they knew that coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to take on that challenge of becoming disciples who make disciples.
And more than just be small group leaders.
Yeah.
They'd all kind of done that, but we were going to expect something more of them. And so as we began to mentor them, they began to see what it was really like.
I think one of the really big changes that we saw in each of them was when we encouraged them. When we would get together 2-on-2 as couples with them, and as we would see the progress that they were making and just, tell them what we were seeing, they were just blown away. They were like, they don't get encouragement.
Nobody had ever done that. Every one of them, these are folks who'd been leaders in church, a couple of them have been elders, lots of things, but everyone said, you know what? We're talking about making disciples. No one ever discipled me. They'd been in classes, they'd done other things, but no one had ever actually discipled them. And so for us to actually, 2-on-2, sometimes 1-on-1, we'd split up, but to speak into their lives and say what we saw God doing in their life, where we saw they needed to grow, where they saw that what was holding them back. It's just creating an atmosphere of grace and truth where they know we loved them, we cared about them, we were there for them, but we weren't going to let them get away with anything.
The other thing that we did was, in the very beginning, we went through sort of a questionnaire that we had them fill out of where they saw their strengths, where they saw areas that they needed to grow in, where they saw areas they wanted to grow in, and then how could they apply that? How could they how could they set goals and actually achieve that? And so that every month when we got together with them, we could come back to those things and say, well, how are you doing? Or I see that you are really, doing this.
But also, and it's like, well, you set this goal to do this. How are you doing? Well, I didn't do it. Okay, why not? What's keeping you from doing that? We wouldn't just try to explore what the problems were.
But having that real accountability every month with them, is something they really appreciated too.
Yeah, the inventory was the spiritual inventory that Dave Gish developed, and so I took that, modified it a little bit, but I'll borrow from anybody that is a good idea.
That's great. That's great. So when you had this initial leader group that you worked with and developed over the course of a couple of years, did you have any idea at that point that some of these people would be mentors in a marriage ministry?
Not necessarily.
No, we hadn't planned it.
Okay. When we chose them near the end, we said, okay, the last 6 months, we said, okay, who's one other couple that you could begin to work with? So we wanted to have them start small and what they might do. And a couple of them talked about it, thought about it. Some people that were kind of thinking about working with and made a few inroads. But the whole idea of this re-engage marriage ministry is it provided the structure because it's weekly. There's some content, and some guidelines for how to do it. And we've invited the people. People have said, yes, I'd like to be mentored. We set up an original sort of promotion was that you have to attend as a couple, and you'll be assigned a mentor couple. So people come into it knowing that. And so they're asking for that. And that created the atmosphere so that now the 3 mentor couples, we sort of divided up the people into for those 3 couples. They have 2 groups that does discussion group on Sunday morning where we do the class. And then they follow up individually with the couples during the week.
And we purposely set it up so that we would have no more than 10 couples taking the class, because we had our 3 mentor couples and also space issues. So we had our 3 couples, and we didn't want them to each have, this huge number of people, because we just make the groups not small, not intimate,
and unmanageable for the amount of people that we felt like they could mentor.
Yeah.
But one of the couples is actually mentoring 4 couples. One is doing 3 and one's doing 2. Just kind of the way it broke out and the groups and the way they fell. But they're so excited. They send out an email to the couples during the week. They follow up with them where there's issues. And the 9 participant couples are all at different levels in their marriage, different length of marriage, different.
Some are on the very depths of despair.
Barely hanging
last
on.
Chance kind of a thing. And some are just like,
we just need a few
have any problems.
And so it creates that openness. But for the mentor couples, it really has that structure where, okay, these are couples who are asking for it. I can get engaged with them. I can be involved with them. And the participants are all doing the homework. And so they're coming in with comments or questions
and they're discussing
as a group.
So it sounds like this, the context of marriage was really just a ripe environment for mentoring and discipleship to happen. It was an avenue for these leaders that you've been developing to minister.
Yeah. And partly because we have that, we have that conviction that couples should do ministry together wherever possible. And it was also a great way for us to do ministry together. And hasn't always worked that way because of schedules and responsibilities and so forth. But we were really excited to come back and do ministry together. And the 2-on-2 times as we've met with couples has been just really powerful. We get to see each other at work and bounce off ideas and things.
Once in a while we'll meet, like I'll just meet with the wife and Miles will just meet with the husband.
We'll split one-on-one.
Yeah, a couple of times.
We do that too.
What have been some of the real challenges, but also benefits for you guys together doing this?
Challenge has been doing the lessons and having arguments.
We have our own arguments. Yeah.
Working through stuff.
And we've taken a lot. It's the number of
the
couples
challenge
now.
has been the time issue.
The time issue for the number of couples. And so I've sort of modified some of my schedule and commitments. I'm not preaching as often. And I really feel like this is one of the best investments of my life at this point. These are the leaders that can carry on the work of the church once we're gone. And at lots of different levels. We're excited to see what God's going to do through that.
Yeah. So the time issue is probably the hardest. But the working together on it is probably the best part.
And we learn together by doing ministry together.
One of those.
Yeah.
Well, any other closing? If someone else was looking to begin a ministry similar, any other advice that you'd have for them?
Just be willing to be as open and honest about yourself and yourselves as a couple as you can, so that they feel safe. This couple that we met with this week, they both come from divorced parents. So, they said to us, we never had a model.
We didn't know how it worked.
We didn't know how it worked. So they've, been able to see, they love it when we say and tell them how, we've had struggles and arguments, and they're like, because they see that we work through them and that we still love each other. It's like, it can work.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of it. And it's, we talked about it in Life Flow. It's life on life. Well, how do you do that? That's not just time. That's opening up your heart and opening up your, sure, that your passion and the victories and convictions, but it's also opening up your struggles and the things that you're wrestling with and how God's grace is meeting you every day. So we've really tried to create that building environments of grace and truth where people really grow. That's been a conviction of mine for 20 years. Trying to see how do we do that? And Life Flow gave me, sort of the renewal and conviction about some of that and some framework for it. And this marriage mentoring ministry really gave a context to engage the people we'd started with and see them begin to multiply. So I'm very excited to see what God's going to do through that.